Hello and welcome. My name is April Frazier. I'm a confidence coach and founder of Forward Confidence Coaching. I am here with Sarah Hollinsworth of Poppy List, and we are talking today stories in between. We're talking about her journey as an entrepreneur, and so excited, Sarah, to be with you today. The conversation is going to be amazing. So thank you for joining.
Of course, April. I'm so happy to be here.
So first, okay, you and I met, we connected, it was cool. We were like, we need to be friends. Let's do this. What do we need to share? Where are you in the world?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
Uh-huh. So Texas was kind of crazy this week.
Yes, that is an understatement.
How was it for you to survive power
Yeah.
outages and internet and all the things?
Yeah, for us, we're really fortunate compared to so many other neighborhoods in our city that were impacted with power, lack of water, and other resources that they just didn't have. We were in and out of internet all week. My daughter's school closed for a week, so that's always a challenge. Putting work on pause to take care of your family when you weren't really expecting it. But I'm so fortunate we had the resources to do that. We had some neighbors that were in a pretty big need in terms of they lost power. So, how can we support them? Our next door neighbor is actually a cancer patient, and he wasn't able to make it to Houston for his chemo appointment. So, I am just so thankful to live in the neighborhood I do with families and friends that just sort of bind together and support each other in these sort of emergencies. We went and delivered water to some organizations this morning. you know, so yeah, it was a very scary week for most Texans who were in sub 30 degrees in their own home. Many had water turned off, pipes bursted. We had homes flood. Um, it was really hard, and I think it'll be the next couple of weeks will be really challenging for people to sort of recover from that and then rest from that. Especially families and people with children or caring for elderly are in like this fight or flight mode. And so once they feel secure with their food and water and power, I think they're going to hit a peak where they just desperately need to rest. So just keep our state in your thoughts and prayers the next couple weeks.
Absolutely, will. And you hit on something that's really important as an entrepreneur, and we'll come back to it in a minute about rest and all the things. Tell us, how long have you been a full-time entrepreneur?
I've been a full-time entrepreneur for almost exactly, well, it was a year on January 26th that it's been 1 year. So just over a year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome to the entrepreneurial
Thanks.
journey.
There's no going back.
No going back? You certain?
I'm certain there's not.
And what were you doing before you became an entrepreneur?
Before I became an entrepreneur, I was leading our North American events team at a global IT company called Rackspace. Our headquarters is in San Antonio, so I was there for just about 5 years.
And was money good?
Money was great. I started making $60,000 4.5, 5 years ago, and when I left, I was making six figures. And so we'll get into it, but yeah, I mean, the money was great. I was so fortunate, and to walk away from that with a new baby and a family to start, my own journey was certainly scary and challenging, but it was the best decision I've ever made. So,
What made you leave?
oh my God, what made me leave? I think there's a few things. Do you want me to share sort of like the
Yeah,
big pillars?
yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I don't know. Let's see here. Jasmine and Trisha are on the call, but I'm a mother. I have a 20-month-old daughter. So when I went back to work 3 months after my daughter was born, I had to commute from Austin to San Antonio on a shuttle. Since I ran an events team, it required a lot of travel. So there was a week where I had to be in Las Vegas when she was about 5.5, 6 months old. And the environment at my company and the job that I was in, it was not suitable for working mothers, especially new ones. We didn't have a nanny, we don't have those types of resources. It's just me and my husband. And so I would leave before my daughter was awake, and I'd get back on the shuttle from San Antonio to Austin, go straight to pick her up from daycare, and I'd have about 30, 45 minutes with her in the evening, and that was it. And so I I was convinced that I was made for this career sort of driven mother that society sort of portrays as like the ideal lifestyle. But so many things started happening to me as I was chasing this idealistic sort of image and lifestyle. My milk supply completely depleted. I was so overly stressed that I started to have like physical manifestations of what was happening inside my body. I had like the worst, if you Google it, you'll be like, oh my gosh, I had the worst perioral dermatitis. It was all over my face. It looked like red, bumpy blisters. I couldn't put makeup over it. I was so embarrassed to go in public. It hurt. I still have like a few scars that are covered up now with makeup, but so there were things that were happening to me physically, and then mentally. I mean, it really took a toll on me. There was one, I wish I could remember the exact date. There was one day when I was driving myself from Austin to San Antonio, and I had this thought that was not anything like me. And I really did think to myself, what would happen if I hit this car in front of me? And um, that was the first time that I scared myself, because I have a daughter and a husband and this beautiful life. And I thought that more than once on days that I would drive myself. And so I look back now and I think, the days that I decided to take the shuttle, our company offers a shuttle in between cities. The days I chose to take the shuttle and not drive myself, I think I was just under so much duress that the shuttle kind of saved my life. Like I didn't have to drive myself. And those thoughts weren't me, I never struggled from anything like mental or mental health related. As far as I know, I definitely think there's probably some postpartum depression that went undiagnosed even 5, 6, 7 months later after my daughter was born. And so I think returning back to work, trying to achieve this lifestyle that I thought was for me, and then really struggling mentally with those thoughts, that's when I knew I needed to make like a very drastic change for myself and for my family, because those thoughts scared me. And I have a whole life to live and a daughter to raise and a family to take care of. So yeah, I had quite a few big things happen and knew it was kind of like really like do or die, honestly.
Yeah. I'm glad that you bring up the physiological effects, right? Because here you are, you're a new mom, and you're trying to still keep pace with a life that is clearly not serving, and your body is responding. And I bring that up because, or you bring it up, and I highlight it because um, I find as women, we tend to ignore the signals. We're just like, yeah, okay, I'm fine. We just need to push through it. And our culture fosters that kind of mentality of like, hustle, 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 just push. When in fact our bodies are very much so saying, giving us that message, and
Mm-hmm.
it's clear that you were receiving that, right, with the the acne.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say
Yeah,
it. I know how to.
it
I wrote it
basically is.
down.
It looks like terrible acne. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thoughts that you had about it. What did you do? Like, how did you? Your face looks clear now,
Thank
obviously.
God.
Like, what did you do to overcome?
Yeah. So I think for me, and probably a lot of women, I was like, okay, I'm gonna eat lactation cookies. I'm gonna eat better. I'm gonna drink more water. My milk's definitely gonna come back. I'm going to change out all my skincare product. I'm gonna change my detergent and buy new pillowcases, and my skin's gonna clear up. But the reality is, it was all stress. I mean, it was stress on another level, and it was burnout on another level. And like I said, probably some postpartum depression. And I was trying to fix all of the exterior things when all I needed to do was take like a literal mental and physical break. And, you know, so really the biggest thing that I did to get help and to make the transition to leave Rackspace is I shared with my husband sort of this thought that I just shared on the call about, what would happen if I hit this car in front of me. I shared that with him, which for the record was probably a very, very scary thing for him to hear. And I didn't want him to be afraid. I didn't want him to think less of me. I just knew that something was off. And so I shared it with my husband and found a therapist in Austin that I went to see probably within a week and a half, as soon as I had sort of those thoughts. And I'm so grateful because I've never been to therapy really in my whole life. It's just, I haven't had life circumstances that would really require me to like seek that type of help and guidance outside of like my immediate friends and family. But I'm so glad I did because with the support of my husband and the support of my therapist, I went to see a therapist starting in October 2019 and then quit my job only a couple months later. And
Wow.
that was the best money, I've ever spent. She wasn't cheap. I didn't go through insurance. I just found someone that seemed normal and not very clinical on a website. I really connected with her on the phone and I got into her office as soon as I could see her.
Wow. Wait. So October you went, and then in
Quit
January
my job 4 months later.
you were done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But that's a huge change. You're talking about walking away from the safe job with the paycheck. You got a young child, right? It sounds like you have a support system. You have your husband. You went to see a therapist. So you first applaud you for reaching out and asking for what you needed. That's
Yes,
a huge step and a difficult one sometimes. But Sarah, you got to secure the bag. Like, so you didn't have a business set up beforehand.
Mm-mm. I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't have anything set up. Nothing.
So
I know.
How did you know? How did you know you had to? You just had to, and planning your steps, I guess, to get there. Or did you plan? Did you just say,
yeah, no, we planned. And here's the thing, like, I want to take a moment to recognize, like, my situation is not like, it's probably very different than what a lot of people can experience. Like, my husband, thank God, has a wonderful job. I was able to get on his insurance. Both my daughter was actually on mine. So there were things that we had to plan for in terms of like insurance expenses. His car was almost paid off. So there were things that we did and adjusted in terms of how we spent money, that would allow us to, would allow me to leave my job. So it wasn't like rip the Band-Aid off, I'm quitting, without discussing it first. It only took us 4 months to make some changes so that our family could be in a space where I could quit. And I'm so, so grateful because I have a husband who understood the severity of my need to quit and take a break to get better for our family. And we made those changes really quick as a family. And so I always knew in my brain what I wanted to do. I always knew since I got pregnant that there was an experience in terms of building your baby register that needed to be changed. Like, I always had this business idea never left me the second I got pregnant. And it was what I always came back to that like gave me joy and a lot of excitement. So, we made adjustments as a family within those 4 months. My last day at Rackspace was like January 24th or January 26th in 2020. And I thought I desperately wanted to just take a break. Like, I didn't think I wanted to take Amelia out of school. I wanted to keep her in school so that I could just breathe during the week and like physically and mentally just do nothing. But within like 2 weeks, I was already enrolled at the Entrepreneur Center of Austin to start taking classes just to really understand what this life could look like if I were to start my own company. And that didn't feel like work. That was so much joy for me in a way that I haven't experienced in a long time. And so, I did not have my business set up when I quit, but there was a lot of things that we certainly did as a family to put us in a position to allow me to walk away within 4 months, which I know is really quick. that was our situation.
I know there are people, not but, I know there are people on this call who are planning or trying to figure it out. How do I get out of here, this
Mm-hmm.
job? And feeling the call, like, and I'm hearing that's what you said. You felt
Mm-hmm.
it, your body felt it,
Yep.
and then you took the steps to have conversations with the people that you needed to
Mm-hmm.
and get the help that you needed to, entrepreneur school, therapists, right? Making sure to kind of ramp up to that place. And then what was it like to walk away?
Um, you know, it was really sad in a few ways because I loved the job that I was doing. I had this really incredible career at Rackspace that I loved, but it wasn't suitable for me. And so that was hard leaving a job that I actually enjoy, but it is also the most liberating thing I've ever done in my life. Um, and there was freedom that I felt in a way I haven't before. So it was, I don't know how to describe it other than the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah, yeah. I remember that first morning I woke up after I quit my job, and my friends were asking me like, "Well, what's it like?" And I was like, "Feels great."
Right.
But there's that long, not but, and there's a long term. At first, there's freedom, right? And there's the space, the breathing room, and the knowledge that you. It's a knowing, right, that you're on your
Mm-hmm.
path, even though you can't see the uncertainty of what's coming next.
Correct.
um, that we feel. I'm curious, like, why Populist? So you created Populist. Tell us a little bit about what it is and why. Why this was the thing to
Yeah.
create?
Yeah, sure. So when I was pregnant with my daughter, I obviously, like most people in North America, started to build a baby registry because I was going to have a baby shower. And I cannot believe how much time I spent building it and how overwhelmed I was by deciphering what I have to have versus what's nice to have, or is Amelia going to like this, or will she like this? It was so overwhelming and so time consuming. And we accidentally purchased a mini crib, which I didn't even know was a thing. Mini cribs are designed for people who live in like a New York City studio apartment or some super small house in San Francisco, not the suburbs in Texas. And this crib shows up, and I send my older sister a picture of this crib, and she responds with, that looks like a dog bed for a tank. And tanks are like super tiny Boston Terrier puppy that we grew up with in California. And that was sort of the start of Populous. It's like, if this happened to me, someone who's researched 30, 40 hours of products for their future baby, this must happen to families everywhere. It was just ridiculous. And it really wasn't that fun of an experience. And I was like, how is this not better? And that was really the start of Populist. Um, so what it is today, we help expecting moms and dads identify what they need for their baby registry. And then this summer, we're launching our beta, which parents will actually be able to register with Populist and purchase the items directly from our site. So we are working towards creating a more simple experience for people to build their baby registries.
Why? How did you know that this was your thing? Like,
I I don't know how I knew this was my thing other than it was the thing that I kept coming back to. It was the thing I talked about in therapy. It was the thing I would talk to my husband about at dinner. It was the thing I would talk to my friends about that were pregnant. I just could not, there was something that kept pulling me towards this idea, like, why can't this be better for parents? And why can't it be me that solves for it? Listen, I was an event planner my whole life. Like, I don't have the expertise to start a company that's enabled by technology. Um, but why can't I know those things? Why can't I have a company that does that? And the reality is I can, but there's so much stuff that I've had to do, and I'll have to continue doing for us to get there. But um, it was it was the thing that I just kept coming back to. And I don't know how to describe it any better than that.
are you scared now?
Oh, Yeah, I'm scared. I have anxiety that someone's doing the same thing I'm doing. They're just working faster with probably more money. I'm scared because I've put this out to the world. I've put this on my Facebook, on Instagram. I've sent all my family and friends emails about Populous. Like, this is what I've declared to the universe that I am doing. And I'm scared that it won't work. I'm scared that in a year from now, I'll have to go back and say, hey, everyone, I tried this. But it didn't work. Or so I think there is fear. Of course, I'm scared. I'm scared that we'll build it and we'll self-fund Populous and spend thousands of dollars and maybe it never makes money. I think there's a lot of fear and risk, but despite the fear and risk that I feel, I also just don't feel like there's any downside. What I've learned so far, I could have never, ever, ever learned at Rackspace. And I don't think I'll ever go back to corporate, but if I have to, and that's the situation we find ourselves in 3 or 5 years from now, then guess what? I get to tell people on my resume that I try to build a company. And it doesn't mean I wasn't successful. It just means the company wasn't. And I have taught myself budgeting, runway, pitch decks, content strategy, email campaigns, a customer journey. I'm working on a partnership agreement and learning about how to give someone equity stake and shares that vest over time. I mean, the stuff that I've taught myself, it's the best experience I've ever had, besides being a mom.
Yeah. So you hit on something that was asked by someone in our audience. This comes from Mariah. She asks, "I'm just starting out. I feel stuck, but it seems like there's so much to do. What's the first step to focus?"
I think the first step to focus is to get rid of noise that you don't feel brings your life value. That could mean simplify the social media platforms where you spend your time. That could mean unfollow people on Twitter or Instagram that make you feel like you're not good enough, or they're making you feel like you need to be doing a million and one things, because that can be super overwhelming and complicate things. I would, it does feel like there's so much to do. The very first few things I did, like I said, I took a class at the Entrepreneur Center of Austin, and I bought a book called The Lean Startup. So that was the very first thing I did and the very first thing I read. And I loved how easy the direction was in that book. I love their sort of philosophy in terms of business planning. It's not this lengthy, overcomplicated process. It's a very simple canvas with 8 or 9 prompts. And that was the very first thing I did. I don't even have a thorough business plan, because I use the template that the Lean Startup method provides. And I think that helped me sort of create this small little North Star with priorities. The other thing I did was I obviously bought my domain. I started to make my website from scratch. And every month I look and see where my website traffic is coming from. And that's how I decide to spend my time. So if my top 5 web traffic sources are Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, those are the only 3 places you'll find me. I don't get on anything else. I don't subscribe to anywhere else. Because if those are where your potential customers are coming from, master that space first and then move on somewhere next. So I don't know if that helps, but
no, I'm glad that you hit on that, because that's actually one thing that people ask me a lot when female entrepreneurs come to me. They're just like, what do I post and where do I post? Because there's so many things. You and I were talking before we started recording about how you took some steps to whittle down the playing field, so to speak. And I've done the same. I've unsubscribed for things and unfollowed people and dropped whole platforms because this is not the best use of my energy. And I think that's a really important thing, because we tend to want to do it all. The internet says we need to do it all. And in fact, actually whittling it down. It sounds like that's what you learned to do as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I spent time on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Pinterest, Indie Hackers, Product Hunt, Clubhouse,
Oh goodness.
you name it, Girl Boss, Hey Mama, I have an interview next week with someone from this company called FamTech. I mean, you name it. And it is so overwhelming and time consuming. And so I have to go back to my website and I have to look at the data and say, okay, Sarah, this is your top 5 traffic sources. Stop spending time anywhere else. It is irrelevant at this point in time. And I think you have to test them all in some capacity in the very beginning. Mm-hmm. But once you have a couple hundred people come to your site, you can start to narrow down how to prioritize your time. And that's been a huge benefit for me. And most website companies, however they build their site, have those analytics on the back end, like they're already built in, they're free. And so that's been a really helpful resource for me.
What do you fear right now that you're on the journey? What's your biggest fear?
Oh my gosh. I mean, my biggest fear is someone building the exact same thing I am. Mainly because I don't know. My biggest fear is building something that people aren't going to like, which it sounds crazy because I'm building this thing based on feedback from people. But I'm afraid that once it's finally done and the whole populist idea is like has come to life, it's, I don't know. I think my biggest fear too is just like letting myself down. So I haven't really thought about that one.
Yeah,
I have a few.
No, but I'm glad I'm glad that you touched on it, right? Because, or you touched on the idea that what if somebody builds it first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And letting yourself down, because fear is there. And
right.
This is one thing common misconception I see, is that you have to know everything before you start. And from what you're explaining, you didn't know everything, but you knew you had to. And listening to that piece of yourself to say, no, I have to do this, and planning your steps. But also, so much courage is taken in being willing to lay down steps right before you need to step.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And managing that fear is crucial. I found it important in the entrepreneurial journey, managing the fear, the scarcity, the overwhelm, the what if somebody doesn't like it. Even as you said, you're building this thing that you're building for you and what you needed. And so you needed it, other people needed, and yet there's still a fear of like, what if
they don't? Yeah. And I think the other piece of fear that comes with the entrepreneurial journey is like, when we launch our companies, when we launch our ideas and make them known to the world, no one prepared me for the amount of rejection from my own friends and family, from people I know, that when I sent out my email about launching Populist, I never heard from certain people. It was like crickets. And I think we have to put ourselves out there in a vulnerable way that we probably otherwise haven't before. And it's a lot of no's, it's a lot of silence. And it doesn't mean your idea isn't working or that it's not good. We just can't read into what that means. It could mean that there is a level of jealousy, or people aren't happy because your situation looks different and they want what you are trying to build. And it's really hard being vulnerable, but then also not receiving feedback. Like when you're on a team or at a corporate environment, you have end of year reviews, you have your teammates that you're constantly talking with and brainstorming ideas off of. But when you enter this world, if you don't have a co-founder or a team, like for me, I'm by myself right now, it is the amount of rejection and silence I have received, I wasn't prepared for. And I can't take it personal because it has nothing to do with me, but I have to sort of like remind myself that every week. I can still be human. I can still have my feelings hurt, but entrepreneurship is definitely not for uh, we just have to have thick skin, and there's no other way around it.
Yeah. Okay. And then I'm curious. You and I talked a little bit ago. I think it was last week or 2 weeks, and you were mentioning, you were telling me a little bit about your journey in managing, getting your coffee time. Can you tell us, like how do you spend your days, and how do you get your self care and make sure that you are taking care of self and your business, your family, the different responsibilities that you have as a woman and as an entrepreneur? You're presented with special challenges. Curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think I wish I had like a really clear cut schedule on weeks where there's, for those that are on the call, I'm in Austin. And so the past week I didn't have childcare because of the storm and the once in 100-year winter we just had. So that was like very disruptive. Um, but the best thing about that is being an entrepreneur, I didn't have to call my boss and ask for time off. I didn't have to submit PTO. I just changed some things around so that I could be home with my daughter so my husband could work. However, that's hard because I'm normally since I don't have the income right now as I'm building Populous, I'm definitely I take more responsibility in sort of caring for Amelia when I need to, but that's a agreement my husband and I have because that's important for our family because he keeps the lights on, literally,
Yeah.
But on a perfect week, I wake up before my daughter and my husband and do like about an hour on my computer. He takes her to school because he knows that like I love the mornings and that's definitely when I'm my most creative. I work pretty much all day until 2:30. Then I just do a few things around the house and I exercise at 3. I try to exercise at 3 almost every weekday. And then I go pick up Amelia at 4. So my days are they're focused. I always have tasks and I try to stay on schedule. But the schedule that I have set up works for me mentally and physically. Um, but then there's weeks where that does not happen. I don't work out. There are weeks where I don't work out all week, and there are weeks where I eat like crap. And there are weeks where I don't feel motivated because this journey is intrinsic and it's up to us to make it happen. And that's hard. So on days or weeks where I just don't feel like my best self or that creative, I just close my laptop and I spend time outside and I go spend money in a coffee shop and just sit by myself and read because the burnt out I experienced at Rackspace, I never want to have again in my entire life. And so I feel like I know when my body is creeping towards that unhealthy burnout, I can recognize it in a different way. And it always looks different. I might feel like sluggish and tired, or I just might feel like I need to recharge with my husband or I need to recharge alone. So that doesn't really answer your question. My weeks like look different, but
No, it
when they're
does.
consistent, they're great.
Yeah, no, it does. But that's the idea, right? Like,
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur, I find my weeks are not consistent because you
Mm-mm.
can't know that the first winter in 100 years is going to
Right.
come, and yet work has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, and this is very important for women, you have to honor your needs, right? You have to honor your
Right.
body, and the body talks. And I'm glad that you bring that up, and I thought this is why I thought your story was so interesting because your body literally told you something needed to change, and oftentimes we feel it, but we are afraid to listen. Not sure what we're hearing. We don't know what to look for. Myself, when I was on my own journey, I broke out in this
Mm-hmm.
terrible. I was suffering from imposter syndrome, the stress of everything, 9 to 5. Totally broke out. So it's interesting as when I was hearing your story, I was hearing some of my story. Like, yes, acne was one of those things
Mm-hmm.
in which the body is sending a clear signal.
Mm-hmm.
Something is wrong here. Um, it's it's good. I'm
It
gonna
is
switch.
good, but could you imagine what our world would be like if women had the time and the support to pay attention to what we were feeling and then really understood like what we truly need? Like this world would be like, I feel like there's a change coming though. Women having to drop out of the workforce because of COVID to care for their families while childcare wasn't an option, or there is a shift happening, and I can't wait to see. Like, I wish I knew, like, April, when you quit your job and the women on the call or whomever, like, I just wish I could keep a tab on everyone's lifestyle to see how it progresses, because I think there is a shift happening where women feel, you know what, that lifestyle doesn't feel so out of reach. I can have that. And like I said earlier, why can't it be me? Why can't it be you? Why can't it be Rochelle or Trisha? I mean,
Yeah.
it can. Um, and this is going to sound silly, but since I quit Rackspace and launched Populist, and for the record, for those on the call, my business is not profitable yet. I am still building this thing out. I have revenue, but there is so much more to be done. The point of this discussion is just to talk with each other about the transition between quitting your job and building a company. And I'm so grateful to be here. But since I took the leap to quit Rackspace and to launch Populist, my twin sister is starting to write a book. My best friend Stacy back home just took on a consulting job and quit her full-time job so that she has more hours at home with her kid. My finance business partner from Rackspace messaged me the other day about how I started, because she wants to do some type of financial consulting on the side and maybe eventually leave Rackspace. I mean, you just need to be that one person for your community to inspire all these other women, for them to really believe, wait, well, if Sarah can quit, why can't I? And that's a beautiful thing. And it's not to say like we should all be financially irresponsible and quit our jobs and go like, do whatever. But there are plans that we can put in place to make it happen. And I really believe that. And it makes me like so excited to see women in my community and my circle of friends and family decide to do something for themselves.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, because the creating your own lane takes a tremendous amount of courage, especially when you don't see anyone else who's done it.
Right.
And that's part of the reason I wanted to let people hear your story. Part of my story, you're creating your own lane. I didn't have anyone in my environment who done it before. I didn't know any successful women entrepreneurs. And the idea being that, just as you said, you inspire other women that it's possible to do something different, and it's possible to create your own lane. It's possible to step into a space where you are creating what you needed. And I think what you said is, I agree that a change is coming, because it is a powerful and really beautiful time to be a female and to be an entrepreneur in these times. We have resources, we have support, we have community, we have things that were not available to us before. And that's why creating our lane is more accessible, I think, than ever before, if we choose.
I think it is, if we choose it. And I remember when I left Rackspace, people could not conceptualize that I was quitting my job and not going to a new one. Like, I was quitting my job to go build something and start something on my own. Like, I had my boss say, Sarah's going to leave so that she can be like a full-time stay-at-home mom and spend more time with her daughter. And that wasn't true. But like, people needed to believe that to support me leaving. Like, I did not fit into a box, but I was so okay with it not fitting into a box. But it was just so funny because people could not understand why I was quitting Rackspace and how could I possibly be quitting a job with a new daughter without a new job lined up. And it's like, well, I'm so fortunate to be in a position where I'm quitting Rackspace with no job lined up, but I'm going to go build my own. And it's been over a year. Like, this thing is not going to get built overnight. Like, I work on it every single day in the middle of a 100-year storm or otherwise. And it's like I said, I'm scared. Of course I'm scared. I have lots of fears, but I can't wait to see what happens.
And thank you for saying that, because the fear is not the reason to stop.
No.
Or to not begin.
Mm-mm.
That's actually a pretty natural requisite for, this is why you've got to do it, because it's your time, it's your moment, it's what you need to create for you.
Right.
Both in creating something for other people to be supported and serve, and also for you personally, for yourself and for your family. This is what you must create.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to stick with, that the fear's not enough to keep you stuck if you choose it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so true. And that's like, I've said this to other women. I'm like, if you're in a position with support and the finances that you need to keep the roof over your head and yourself and your family fed, and you have the opportunity to start something new and to try something, you have to take it. Like, if there is a window of opportunity that makes sense for where you are in your life, you just have to. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay. There's other things that we can do. We can go find a job somewhere else if we have to. But if there is a window of opportunity that makes sense for women in their situation, I wish I could like get on a microphone and go like from house to house and be like, are you in a position to leave? And what would your life look like if? And oh my gosh, okay, let's go do it. It sounds cheesy, but I just believe in us so much.
Yeah. And to your point, I would add to that sometimes you have to create the circumstances. I didn't have it, or at least I didn't think I did. I was single. I was trying to figure out how can I quit. I did not have a husband to rely on, and I had to go figure it out. And so that piece is, yes, I'm saying yes to what you said, and sometimes you got to create that space for yourself, and that may take time in of itself, but the journey is the calling. I think is something that I wanna personally highlight in this conversation. The calling, the need that you feel needs to be answered, and you answered it. I'm gonna switch to. We had some questions. Unless you have anything else further, I'll switch to some of the questions. We answered Mariah's question. Trisha wanted to know, what setbacks did you encounter and how did you overcome them?
Oh my gosh, what setbacks did I encounter? I think the biggest ones for me, so I'm building a company that's tech enabled. So that's going to take a lot of cash to have the technology built and created because it doesn't exist today. So I was hoping to get accepted to a few accelerator programs. So what that means is there's programs out there for startups. And if you're accepted to an accelerator and incubator, they'll give you some of them up to $100,000 in cash for a small equity stake in your company. And that's what I thought my journey needed to be at the beginning. But I was not accepted to any of the accelerator programs last fall. And so that was really, really hard because my husband and I were like, okay, well, we need to really identify how much money this is going to cost us, because one, we may not have it. And two, if we don't have it, how are we going to get it? And it was literally a miracle. I met my almost official technical co-founder on the internet. And he was actually looking for a product like mine because he's a new dad. He just had his first baby a couple weeks ago. And he is a full stack developer. So he's actually going to be able to build it for us without us having to upfront the money ourselves. And I say that because this journey, I have had so many no's. No's from accelerator programs, no's from organizations that don't want to partner with me, no's from trying to get on people's podcasts just to get the word out there. I mean, you name it. So many no's and so many no responses. And I think how I overcame it is just like, okay, well, there's another accelerator I'll apply to, or okay, there's another podcast I'm going to submit an inquiry for. And I kept plugging away, and the no's are so defeating, but there was a yes. And I just kept putting it out. I really felt like I'm just going to put Populous out there and someone's going to see it and I'm going to get a yes eventually. And the email I got from my potential co-founder, it wasn't like a formal yes. It was in theory, like it was an answer yes, because I was looking to have it built and I didn't really want to pay for it out of our own money. And we're not going to have to do that. And so I think the best way to answer that is, no matter what the setbacks are, just keep going. And we're going to have a ton, and I'm sure I'll have more. So hopefully that answers the question. But I think we can be upset for a day and sit with that feeling and be hard on ourselves, but then we just have to keep pushing forward.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. That no lives in the land of yes.
Yeah, it's so true.
You can't get yes without no. You gotta knock on enough doors. You're gonna get plenty of no's. Somewhere in there will be yeses, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that goes true for anything. But you got to stay the course, right? Just like you
Mm-hmm.
said, and stay in the game. Because otherwise, if you just stop at the no's, well, then you fulfill the
Yeah.
prophecy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that the self fulfilling prophecy that you're gonna get no.
Mm-hmm.
LaShawn, she asked, how did you quit your job when you don't have a six-figure salary, living check to check, and don't have a rainy day fund like hers, is what she said. We've touched on this a little bit. You didn't have a rainy day fund,
Mm-mm.
and you had to figure it out. How would you answer that question?
I mean, I think the situation is different for everybody. For me, I had the husband who had a job, and I did make money that allowed us to save. And so the best thing I can say, I think about my twin sister who is a single mother with a 4-year-old son, and she does not have a husband. She does not have a rainy day fund. But she has a story that deserves to be told. And so she works at a furniture company. I mean, she does not have a glamorous job either. Um, but there are things that she's putting in place while she's working so that once her book gets published, she can use that to hopefully make enough money to leave her job and to try to pursue being a speaker and an activist for um, victims of domestic violence. And she has a book she wants to write. And so I think about her example more than mine because her situation sounds a little bit more similar. But there are things that people will have to do after hours, after their kids are asleep, despite the grind, to put things in place like we had touched on in order to make their life um, in order to really make the dream that they have for their life possible. This woman I used to work with at Rackspace, she knows that she cannot quit until her student debt is paid off. So that her journey to put a plan in place is going to take a lot longer. But there are tangible steps that she knows she needs to take in order for her to leave her job. Again, because it wouldn't be financially responsible for her to just quit and then have all this debt with no income.
Yeah.
And so I think everyone just has to look at their own situation to say, okay, what are like the tangible steps that I need to do to put myself in a position where I could walk away and still take care of the people that I need to. And I certainly don't recommend people just like up and quitting,
Sure, certainly.
but hopefully that helps sort of answer that a little bit.
Yeah, and you do anytime we want to do something, we'll find a way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. To your point about I think it was your sister you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
She knows she has, or the person who has a no, they can't quit, so they pay off their student loan.
Yeah, that's my old coworker. Mm-hmm.
Oh, your old coworker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the idea of like, for me, I teach people to use to discover their compass question. That is to say, does this make the boat go faster in terms of student loan? Okay, does this help get me closer to my goal? And mapping it that way, those kinds of things can help to drive focus. Some of the things we touched on, right? Focus, making sure you are in alignment with where you want to be. But if you want it, you can build it. And
Yeah.
one thing that keeps coming up for me as you're talking, Sarah, too, is the idea that you'll go get support and you'll just keep going until you find the right support, even in the face of no's.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean, I'm happy to hear you say that sometimes it's challenging, because the entrepreneurial journey is not something where you're like, yay, we hear all the success stories, but there's a lot that happens in between this. Very emotional. It's a jagged edge journey, and yet it's very much so, it's on the path. It's on a
Right.
person's unique path and part of their purpose. It feels, when I hear you talk about Populous, it feels like this is your purpose to create this thing that you needed for other people who need it. And I think that that's something that can't be people that can't be, it can't be digitized. It can't be put in a webinar. You can't be told what your purpose is. You just feel it, you know it, and you do what it takes to get in that lane and to
Right.
get on that
And
path.
the other thing I'll say is like there's going to be trade-offs no matter what. Like when I decided to leave Rackspace, I had to get rid of every membership I was a part of, any excessive overhead spend. My husband doesn't have a car payment, and we're certainly not going to get a new one. Like there are trade-offs that we have to make in order for me to try to build this company. Yeah. We don't go out to eat hardly as often. I mean, it's kind of been a forcing function of COVID, but we haven't traveled. There are things that we cannot spend money on that will allow me to keep building Populist. And, that's just something that we're prepared to do though, as a family. Like we said, okay, well, we're not doing 1 through 15 anymore until Populist starts to make money. And, that's just the reality. And that's okay, because I think the trade-offs will be worth it.
Yeah. The other questions from the audience we've touched on as we've gone through, so I just have one last question for you. What's your dream, Sarah?
My dream? For Populist?
And your life, because you created Populist not just for Populist, right? And for the people you're serving. So at large, whatever comes up for you is perfect. What's your dream?
I think my dream is just to build a company that consolidates information for expecting parents, that helps them feel like so prepared and confident to bring their baby home. Because if we can give those moms and dads that type of time back to focus on other things, I feel like we could really create like a new generation of like empowered parents. And that makes me really excited to build a community within the parents that will help support through Populist. And then, I mean, my dream is to, not have to make sacrifices for how I spend my time with my husband and my daughter. And I just see a different life for us than I had at Rackspace. And that means being financially, kind of free. And I'm not in this to make a ton of money. Like I started to build Populist to help people first, not to make money first. And that kind of puts me at a disadvantage, because now I have to think about, okay, well, how am I going to monetize this? And there certainly are ways, but I didn't build this at first to make a lot of money. I just want to be in a position that truly helps expecting parents. I think we could really, I think I picture a world with really confident future parents, and that is really exciting. Because it is scary. It's the ultimate unknown, and we don't really know what we're doing. We're kind of winging it every single day. And I think there'll always be an element to that. But for the parents who are bringing a newborn home, if they know that they have the basic necessities to truly care for their child and to make, really the mom's transition better at home too, I will feel like I have really done something that could help people.
Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
So appreciate it. Anything else you'd like to share before we finish?
No, I just, let's see. Rochelle and Trisha are still here. I just hope to connect with them outside this call, and I'd love to hear what everyone is working on. And, I just want to say too, like, I don't need to keep repeating that my story is different. Everyone's story is different. I would say comparison is the thief of joy, no matter what. And our situations might look different. You might be more ahead than I am, and vice versa. And I just hope we all feel like we're in this together, because I still have so much to learn. I honestly don't know what the heck I'm doing. I would compare my entrepreneurial journey to parenthood, and every week looks different. And just when you think you're in a groove and a routine, it changes. And that's okay. But I'm so thankful for, your time, April, and being able to share a little bit of my story. And I hope we've helped or inspired 1 or 2 people, and whoever hears this after. And I want to be a resource for the women, just like you are, in any capacity I can be. So
absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, April.
So good. And thank you everyone who joined. If you're watching now or in the replay. Oh, actually, Sarah, before we finish, where can
Yeah.
people find you?
Oh my goodness. They can find me on Facebook. They can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn if they have one.
Search for your name or
Yep.
Populist.
Both.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
populist.com is where she is
Mm-hmm.
creating her fabulous registry for parents. You can go there. We will drop it in the
Mm-hmm.
wherever this video is being shown, we'll drop it there, and then we'll drop all of your links too, Sarah, for
That'd
where
be
people
great.
can find you.
Awesome.
All right then, ladies. Have a fabulous day. And
Very cool.
Trisha says thank you. Thank you, Trisha. Thank you for
Thank you,
joining.
Trisha. I'm so glad you were here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
All righty.
All
Thanks,
right.
April. Talk to you later.
Bye.